Hello there. Today I'm going to explain how I've used Airtable to do some uh, fairly basic bookkeeping with some added features. And I've, I've chosen Airtable because it has some extra functionality like forms that easily come into it, and then the ability to generate different views basically based on what you want to see and how you want to see your data. Okay, so I'm just going to explain how this is set up. This is work in progress, so it keeps on being refined as I get better ideas, but here we go. All right, so you go into Airtable and you create, so what I've done is create a table. So one table I've got pretty much does everything in terms of the P&L side of your bookkeeping. We could create another table for the balance sheet, but this is just to demonstrate how we can capture transactions and categorize them for more the P&L side, but still keep a running balance for that year, to get an idea of what's in the bank and how to reconcile that with the bank balance. Okay, so I'm typically expecting to do this bookkeeping within one financial year, and then when we finish that financial year, we would create another Airtable base to do the next financial year. And what that allows you to do is sort of store your year's financial transactions away and not mess them up with the next financial year. But also what it allows you to do is there's a limitation, I think 1,200 records or something like that in the free version of Airtable. And so what this allows you to do is stay within that 1,200 limit. So this is obviously you can only use the free version if the number of transactions you have is going to be less than 1,200. If it's going to go beyond 1,200, then you'll have to pay for the use of Airtable. And that's not expensive. That's, I think, around $10 US, I think, a month. And if you really want to use it and you like the features in Airtable, not just for bookkeeping, for a whole lot of other things, then you can use it for that. It's quite feature rich, and once you start paying for it, you get additional functionality as well. Okay, so let's go. So what I've done is set up one table called the CIS ledger as an example, and within that table I've got multiple views. I'm going to give you a quick summary of what these views are. So transactions is just basically a list of the transactions by the transaction number. Income and expenditure is very similar to transactions, except it breaks it down by the type of expense and income. Basically, that's the only two types we have. Okay, and I'll show you that. Then I have an expense claim form that allows people. It's a form that goes. Anyone can access it. So so if you've got volunteers or if you've got employees who need to submit expense claims, they can use this form. So the form is a public-facing form, but when people submit it, it'll come into Airtable, into this ledger, into this table. Expense claims is a view that allows us to see those expense claims coming in and then do whatever we need to do to process them. Once we've paid an expense, then we record the payment receipt against them. And this view allows you to see who you've paid against the payment receipt and how much you've paid against them. All right. Payment pending and I'll probably put that above here. Payment pending are those expense claims that are still to be paid. And then once you've paid, you'll have them coming on here. This view gives you the same information again, but just limited to the number of columns that you see by account. So it's like your account summary rather than a transactional view that you can then say report your P&L essentially for end of year. And then we have another one by category. If you want to further categorize your transactions by department or events or campaigns, then you can use this field and then look at this view to provide that information. And this one here is very basic. If your transactions have an attachment, for example, a receipt, then you see only those transactions that have got receipts in this view. So let's have a look at our first view, which is transactions, and it's sorted by transaction number. And how do I know that? Because this is highlighted over here, and if I click here, it says sort by transaction number, and it's ascending. Okay, so whatever the transaction number is. Okay, very simple. We have the transaction number. We have the date of transaction. Okay, and that's the date you want to put in, whether that's the date you created the payment, you actually paid somebody, then that's what you would put in here. If that's when the fees came into the bank, that's what you'd put into here. Okay, so this would be the date of the transaction, and as close as possible to the date that it actually entered the bank, that the date that transaction hit the bank. But it's as long as we're as close to that as possible, because then we can use it to find transactions. The type of transaction is whether it's an income or an expense. That's basically it. That's all we're trying to see here. Then we have the accounts. Now, in an accounting system, it's the GL account. So we call it an account here. And I've just got these here. If I'll show you the various types, the various accounts we have. Now, if you want, you can go, okay, this is going to be 1100 like this. So you can put an account number in there if that helps you, but we found we don't really need that. If you do that, put a number there, then it makes sure that it's aligned or sorted in a particular way rather than alphabetical if you ever do sort it. Then we have this claim amount. And what I'm going to do is, so if it's a claim, so that it's come through a claim form, then that's populated automatically from the form, as is the person. So if it's coming from a claim form and it's a person, it'll come into here, because the person submitting it will give their name in there. Then we have a description of what was, in this case, what was the expense related to, what would we buy. This one we put in here as a negative if it's an expense, and a positive if it's an income. Now, what happens is when the claim form comes in, only this field is populated. When you process a claim, then you put the figure in here, and it's just a negative of that. And we do that because we want to subtract it from the income we're getting. So down the bottom here, this should be what our bank balance is, okay, essentially. And one of the things, so if you started the financial year with a bank balance already, then you can put in an income line and just call it balance carry forward in your income, and that will reflect in here as well. Okay. Now, if it's a claim, once again, we ask the person who's doing the claiming for the actual date of the purchase, so purchase date, and where they purchased it from. Okay, the name of the store, essentially. And then this is how we use the claim status, and more on this later, to identify whether we have actually made the payment for this expense claim or not. Okay. Now, you won't have to do any of this claim part if the expense is, for example, a bank fee. Okay, if it's a bank fee, then all we need to do is say expense. The account would be fees, and we'd go straight and put the negative value in there. We don't need a purchase date. We don't need a purchase from. We don't need claim status, but we would put in some sort of category if we're using categories. And the date of transaction would be the date that bank fee was deducted from our bank account. So here we are using categories, so we're going to use 2020 school. Okay, and the enter date just goes in by itself. You don't have to worry about that, but I show it in this view, so we see when it was entered in. So for example, it might be that the purchase date was on that date, but it was entered, it was actually claimed on this date. So you see when it entered the database. Okay, and then I use this field to make sure that anything that I've entered in here, I've actually verified, or what you call reconciled, that that transaction has appeared in our bank account. And if I say yes, it has, that I've gone and seen it and it has appeared in the bank account, then I say yes. Okay. In accounting systems, this happens fairly automatically. The bank feed comes in, but we're not using an accounting system. We're using a free product to do something a little bit better than Excel. So we would say yes. Oh yes, I've gone in and checked that this $25 came in $25 came in, and we had seen it in the bank account, and I can say yes. Okay, so that's pretty much it for transactions. Next, we go to income and expenditure, and it's really all the same columns, but what we've done is, in addition to sorting by, this time we're sorting by transaction date, because that's more important for us in this view. In transaction view, it was sorted by the transaction number. Okay, slight difference. Typically should be the same sequence, the same sorting, but sometimes may not be. So for example here, it goes the other way around, but pretty much it's sorted the same way. But what we do is this additional thing is called grouped, and we group it by, if I show you that, it's grouped by type. So if the type is different, it'll put all the one type together at the top and another type here. If we add more types, it'll be shown below. But we only have two types two values in type, income and expenditure, and so it breaks it down here. And then what it does is I'm summing it here. So it shows, okay, for income it's $3,000, and for expense it's minus $118. And then down the bottom that shows me that the bank balance should be $2,931. Okay, so that's the income and expenditure. Next one is interesting because it's another view, and you can create more views. You can have a grid, which is what I'm showing you, a form, which is what I will show you. a gallery that I use for the attachments, and there's also a Kanban view if you want. I don't use that for this table, but it's quite handy if you want to use it for. I won't go into it at all. It's really good and it's really fun, but not really relevant for here. Okay. Now, what we want to show next is the claim form. And the claim form is very simple. It basically has the fields we have available in our table, and we can drag it over here and create a form that people can fill in. Okay, so this is our claim form that we want anybody who wants to claim money off us for an expense they've incurred on behalf of the organization. We need them to fill this form in, and this avoids emails, WhatsApp messages, paper, receipts being put in, and then the person who's doing the bookkeeping has to keep track of who do I need to pay. Whereas if everyone uses this and they can, and I'll show you what they can do with it, the data goes directly into Airtable, and the person doing the bookkeeping has a running list of expense claims to assess and then to process and pay if they're deemed valid. Okay, so obviously we want them to record the purchase date, and you have the ability to move things around here. Claim amount, the name of the claimer, what's been purchased, who it was purchased from, and the ability to attach a file. And the good thing is when you bring this form up, and I'll show you how this form looks like in on the web. Here we go. This is what it looks like on the web. Okay. Obviously, this is the actual form, so you can't change it. This is where they enter the information in. And the good thing is when you come down to here and attach file, if you're doing it from your mobile phone, and you can, this renders nicely for a mobile application on the web using the same link. Then, and what you do is, what you can't see is there's a link to this form, and that's the link you share with people you want to submit claims. And that comes in here, but if you're using a mobile phone, when you click on attach file, it actually allows you to also take a photo of your receipt directly from this form. Or if you've taken the photo beforehand, you can go and find it in your gallery or wherever it is on the phone and attach it from there. But the handy thing is, and what I suggest to everybody in the organization, if you want to claim something, claim it straight away. As soon as you've bought it and you're just out of the shop, then fill out this claim form straight away. You've got the receipt in front of you. Take a photo of the receipt through the form and then submit it. And instantly you've gone and submitted that claim rather than putting it in your wallet and then forgetting about it. And 3 months later you say, oh, I paid for this and I don't know where the receipt is, and the receipt has gotten faded or is crumpled in your wallet or in your handbag. So having a good process or being able to submit the claim form for your organization straight away is good for the person submitting the claim form and good for the organization, because they see the expenses straight away and not find out 3 months later that there's a liability of a few $1,000s because people haven't submitted their claim forms. It needs to be very timely. Okay. So when they've submitted a claim form, you can go in here and see all the claims that have been submitted. If I go back to here and I type in, okay, on the 24th, I put in $200 and what did I buy? Pretzels, purchase from Woolworths, and then attach a file. So you can do all of that on the web, then, or you can select a file by clicking here and just, let me see, there's something, here's one, a picture of a Porsche. Okay, then click upload. Okay, and say, well, it's not really that. It's a okay, and say, had to buy this to deliver books. Okay, and let's say it's a bit more than $200. It's probably 1, 2, 3. That's probably more like the price, and then you submit this. Okay, and that's done. That's all they have to do. And then what happens is it comes in here, and if I have a look at expense claims, okay, get rid of this. Okay, all right, that's better. These are all the expense claims, and we found that automatically this came in here. Sorry, I had a filter on that from before, and what's happened is it's come in. There's the date it was entered. There's the purchase date already there. Who did it? What it was about? Where from? How much is the claim amount? And so forth. So then we can say, okay, the claim status. Have we paid or is it new? I'll just leave it blank until I've paid. It's obviously an expense, right? And I say, okay, well, this is going to do, just be careful. As soon as you change some values, it may change where it shows up. So if I change something that will affect the sorting, then it will change its position. And while you can continue, it's probably better to sort of click away, see where it's gone, and then come back to it. And I can then do the bookkeeping stuff, and I'll say, oh, what's this for? We don't really have a expense claim for cars, but that's a whole different issue about assets and so forth. So I'll just put it under other. I've seen this. I haven't paid this yet. So when I do pay it, that's when I'll put in the date of transaction amount and the payment receipt in there. And so I haven't reconciled that, and I have some notes there as well. So that's all of the expense claims. And you can do filtering whatever you want. You might want to say, okay, where the claim status is empty. Okay, so that will show. So where you've made the payment, it'll show that there. But I have another view for that anyway, so I'm going to get rid of that and show everything, all the expense claims, if I want to see it, and where the what's happened with it. And if then that covers the expense claims. And then if I go to payment pending, it'll show that this one is pending because I haven't paid it. All right, so the expense claims should show you everything. This is particularly the one where I haven't made the payment. So this is where I'll go to this really my to-do task, to-do list of expense claims. Okay. Now what I could do in here, I've got claim status here. Okay, and I've got paid new, but I could make another one called rejected. Okay, if that's what I want to do, and I create a new new value there, and then you can process that separately or deal with that separately and put some notes why you rejected it and so forth. But typically we don't need to do that. So I say paid. What I do then is go into my bank and make the payment, and it was 200,000. So I put in, okay, it's going to be minus 200,000. Is that because that's what I've paid? If I decide to pay anything less than that, I can put anything less. They may have claimed 200,000. I said, well, okay, I'll only pay you half of that, and have some agreement off the system, emails, whatever. And then what I need to do is put in the, where is it? Oh yeah, I can also put a category in there. What's this against? I said, well, it's something to do with the school. Put it in there, and the key thing I want to cover off in here is, and I'll do it towards the end, is the date. So put in the date of the 24th is when I've made the payment, and then when I go into the bank and make the payment, it'll give me a receipt, and I put whatever the receipt number is. It's warning me that this is filtered, so where the payment receipt is blank. So as soon as I put something in here, it's going to disappear from here, right? Because it won't be a pending payment anymore. So I put and hit enter, and it's gone. So what do you do when it's gone? Well, you've paid it. It's not in the payment pending anymore. So, but if you go to expense claims, it'll show up here, and it'll show that it's paid, and it'll have the receipt number and so forth. So what sometimes I do is, you don't need to, but what you could do is paste in the payment receipt down the bottom here as well, which I have done earlier for another one. Okay, so that covers off the expense claiming, payment pending, and then by payment receipt, what it does is it gives me this really nice report that says, okay, on this date, I paid people, okay, and then I paid, and I've grouped in the payment receipt dash the person in there, because I may have paid them for multiple payment claims on the same receipt. So it lumps that together, and it'll show me what the amount is I've paid. And then on another date, I paid someone else, and that was for the Porsche, and that comes up here. And once again, the attachments are always there, because it's the same record. You're not moving data around. The data is going into one place. You're processing it, and it's staying, and you're using it for various means. Okay, so you can always say, somebody said, look, I didn't get that payment. You can say, okay, well, no, I did it on this date, and you can give them a little screenshot. You can go, you can do a little screenshot of that and say, look, I paid you, and this was the details of that thing. The good, if you put in the payment receipt details there, then you can actually, in one of the transactions, not all of them, you don't have to, then you can just copy that and send that to them as well. So this gives a bit of a summary, and also a summary of what sort of payments you have made in there. So that's all there because I've done all these things. I've hidden lots of fields because they're not relevant. I've filtered where payment receipt is not empty. So I've grouped it by date, and then a field called receipt person where I've concatenated two fields together, and that's an Airtable. Airtable has lots of uh, uh, fields, formulae that you can use, like Excel, probably not as much as Excel, but quite powerful still. And they continuously update it, improve Airtable, so it's always got new things that are handy, and it's sorted by date of transaction, which is here. Okay, so that covers the payment receipt. Now, the account view is basically your P&L report. Okay, so you can basically take this, do a copy and paste from it. You can download it as a CSV, and then pretty it up in Excel if you want for your financial statements. But if you're doing a month-by-month report at a a committee meeting or something, you can basically take this and say, look, that's the details, and you can collapse the actual transactions and say, well, okay, it's year to date. That's our P&L, okay? And down the bottom shows you what the bank balance is, and because we paid for that portion, it's minus. So we've taken out a loan or something to pay for that. All right, so that covers the account. Now, the other one I have is by category, and you can choose to use that or not. Is that you've got this categorization available here, and you can you've got income, and then within that category, and then you've got your account. Same thing for this. So if you've got categories, events, campaigns, then it gives you an extra level of reporting to break down your income and expenditure. Okay. And then you hide the fields you don't want, and you go and group how you want it to be summarized. Okay, and everything is summarized in this column here because I've said summarize it by this column, and then you have the overarching balance coming down here. Okay, the last but not least is the attachments. And basically, that just shows you the transactions that have got attachments to it. And you can easily just see, okay, well, that was by this person, that's the attachment. Let's have a look at this and have a look at that photo. Oh, that's very nice. And you always get a history of what the changes have been to this transaction. Okay, so that basically covers how I've been using the ledger, how I've been using Airtable, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this information, and I'm going to delete this one here because I don't want that for what we're going to use this for coming up. But what I'm going to do is create a version, a copy of this with this information, so there's nothing really sensitive in here. And if you want this link, just let me know in the comments below, and what I can share that. If you give me your email address, I can share this table with you, and you can use it. You can copy it and then use it as you like. So just let me know. Thank you very much. I hope this helped.